Happy Thursday night, except for Kelsey. No, it's still Thursday in Ireland.
1 hour left.
1 hour left of, so welcome to the summer writing group and HGAPS thing. We are recording this. It will be up on YouTube. We continue. We are continuing to play catch up and get things sorted, but we had a long meeting this afternoon to go over logistics, and we've made a bunch of upgrades. So our goals for the summer include having the teams that you guys are on generate a pair of papers, a manual in the cloud that we'll send for peer review, and a data-based paper that we'll send to a traditional journal. It's been sort of dicey is a good word for it up to this point, because I've still been wrapping up the semester and a bunch of other projects and feeding my dog a lot so he puts weight back on. And but right before noon today, I handed the stuff in. I'm done with the semester. And since our meeting this afternoon, I've been working on my to-do list that we built together. So on the RSVP and planning sheet that we've been using with the link to this meeting and things like that, there is a tab, EAY Open To-Dos. And I want us all to use this, especially if there's something that you need or your team needs that you're waiting on me to get you, add it to my list. Second thing that is a favor, which I'm asking for, which is every time that I meet with you guys, make me share screens and make me show you that I have this sheet open. I've bookmarked it on my browser, but you guys know, like, you're using Slack, me not so much. I'm a professionally trained psychologist. I know that behavior change is hard. So I need you guys to help me change my behavior. So your job is make me open up the list, and we can look at it and be like, hey, I still need this, or what's the update? But just get me to open it. This is going to get everything out of email, so we're going to be able to work much faster, and you'll be able to look at it and see stuff in real time. So this is different. We all know about it now. It's different me asking you, make me use it, hold me accountable. Questions about this? Excellent. The recording from the meeting this afternoon was a long meeting, an excellent candidate for double speed for big chunks of it, but it went through some of the organizational stuff that we're doing. So that's coming. The link is stable. It still is processing the video upload. The third thing, which is new and different and better, is we've got folders for all the team projects. As I'm looking at this, the GBI actually is the sparsest of these. So we have a copy of an ARF. We're in John's team's project, the HCL project right now. So we already have one started, wrong people's names and initials on it. We've got this is a link for the Google Doc version of the outline for the manual in the cloud. And we've got some other files in there that the names could give us more hints about what they are. This is all on the HGAPS drive. So this is all on hgaps.org. I think I can share the folders with you guys, tying it to a specific email address without you having an hgaps.org account. But what I think might be the better way of doing it is making hgaps.org accounts for all the water carriers for the different projects, and let you guys have admin privileges so you could add other people to that. Saw a thumbs up from Kelsey. So we're getting there with and a thumbs up from Wilson. We're getting there in terms of gathering the files, having everything organized. When you guys do some stuff in the breakout rooms, part of what I'm going to be doing is creating the new admin accounts for people that need them. Who needs an hgaps.org account tonight? Put your name in the chat. Everybody already has one that needs one? That's improbable. Okay, it's coming now. All right, so SEPA makes sense. Lang, you're here?
I'm here.
You already have one, kiddo.
An HGAPS?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like for the website?
No, it's the Lang Young at hgaps.org, that thing.
Oh, you mean through Google Suites? I thought you were talking about like on the website to get access to the website.
Nope.
Yeah, I have one.
Nope. Yep. That's awesome you're here. Okay, so I'll make a bunch of those. We'll get people added to this. Another process thing that we're adding as of this week is on the Wikiversity pages that we're using. We want to link all these files that we're using to the discuss page. So as we're looking at the discuss page for Leah, Lillian and Dwani and I have been working on stuff with Leah this week, and we dropped a link to a Google Doc where we're keeping our notes. John and Kelsey and Wilson and SEPA could link the ARF for the manual to the discuss page of the draft manual. So then the ARF is stapled right there, and as people are working on it, they're like, what am I supposed to be working on? So it's stapled right there. What we did riffing on this idea is we're trying to connect Leah to the assessment center and to the measures that you guys are working on the statistics and the manual for. And so we linked to the DBSA or the assessment center. So we've got the link right there. So this is a shift of, hey, the place where we're actually going to be working the most, let's link all of this stuff to it so we don't have to keep sending each other links in Slack and email. The to-do list for these projects could go on the Google Sheet, or it could go on the discuss page. I have your guys' choice, whatever works better for you guys, but whatever you do, it needs to be linked here so that we can find it. If you guys have a question for me, this is going to save us from having to email the link or me being like, I can't find it. Just lost our chance to look at it in this time gap. This is so cool. So Lillian and Dwani are the newest HGAPers, newest people. And every time that I look at this page, they've added something. The gnomes are upgrading this, and so that's beautiful. So we got a whole bunch of files. We're getting them all connected. Where are you going to look for links to everything?
The discuss page.
Yes. Nice. Safa, I did accidentally delete a chunk of the SPSS code, and I did recover it on Dropbox. So I've got that ready to email to you.
Sounds great.
Yep. People that were there this afternoon, other key things to show everybody else? Wilson, is the page on Wikiversity scared or scared? 2 A's or 1?
I believe it's 2 A's. Yeah, the top one.
Caroline Lang, Sean, you guys are the ones that I think have done this before. This particular page we want to relocate. We want to move it to the evidence-based assessment page pile. So as we look at the location up here, the name, this is up at the very top of Wikiversity. And we want to put it, so we want to do the move page thing. But what we want to get to is on the discuss page for this. We've got a link to a Trello. We want to add a link to the ARF for this. We want to add a link to the outline of what stuff are we trying to put on this. So by the time we end tonight, let's see if we can get all the links for this and the GBI and the HCLs that all the documents are on. So that's a team goal.
I'm sorry, real quick, Eric, that last part you said an outline of what we're trying to accomplish. Is that the third thing we should put in the talk page?
So this file?
No, so you were showing us the scared talk page for reference of what things that each of the measurement teams should add. That included a Trello link, but you also mentioned
a link to this file, this exact file.
Got it. All right.
And as I'm looking at this is a classic Eric got interrupted. So the HCL team has an ARF, and so John, you would want to link to this file and to this file on the discuss page.
Okay.
And for those of you that haven't seen an ARF before, the part that we want to pay attention to is the table part. And the table we wound up not using this. In the table, each column is a person. Each row is a contribution to the project. And so we're using this first pass to plan how are we dividing up the work. For things that we're doing redundantly, to maximize the learning, we've talked about everybody take a shot at writing the measures section or the method section, and then compare and decide whose content are we using for each piece. So that would be a slight tweak on this. And so everyone would write the method section, and then we'd be like, we're mostly just using Nick's version of this. So Nick would get the most points. The other tweak which I want to make is participation points. So and we talked about this with the water carriers. So not everybody's able to make it every week. Not everybody is going to do every activity or thing. So the water carrier's job is to track participation. And I've never added participation as a category to a paper before, but we're doing it now. And it's not going to count for a huge number of points, but I want to reward people for playing along. And you guys all have done group projects and you hate social loafing. We all do. The people on this Zoom are the people that couldn't help themselves but do all the work for the project if other people slacked off. So so I want to reward participation, but I also want us to reward doing high quality stuff. And hey, that's a great figure that Chase made. Let's use that. So we could write out names, we could write out, we could use initials. Is there a limit to how many columns we have? We're allowed to add as many authors as we need. The sweet spot is enough people that we're collaborating and dividing up the work, but small enough that we're not creating social loafing and diffusion of responsibility or slackers. So you guys have flexibility about how many people should we have on each project. Last thing that Kelsey saw right away, we're doing 2 papers for each measure. How many ARFs should we have? 2, one for every product that we're trying to generate. And the GBIs, Kelsey was like, oh, and we've talked about doing a third that we think may actually be easier. I'm like, you right. So then you would want to have 3 ARFs in your directory. So this, oh, that's interesting. So Lang, you're an owner of you've got editing privileges on this, so you could help out and flick the link in the chat. Anyone on the internet with this link can edit.
So Eric, I logged on to my HGAPS email and I do not have access to the shared drive, or at least couldn't see it. So if you could add me to that, then that would be great.
Yep.
And I'm having
I
trouble
don't either.
finding,
So.
yeah, I'm having trouble finding I'm having trouble finding the doc, the shared drive for OTOPS, I believe.
Yep.
So there's a link you could drop in the chat or something like that. I believe I'm included on it, but yeah, it's difficult to find.
Bear with me for just a second. I'm trying to figure out how high up I should share with you guys. If I go too high, it's going to be confusing and overwhelming. And if I go too low, then it's not going to get you guys everything that you need. So I'm going to try sharing to here. Share with groups of people. And with the folders, it's smarter to do it this way. This person doesn't exist. HAPS, not HGAPS. All right, I'm not going to try to do everybody right now, but I want to do a proof of concept. So, Kelsey, what's your Gmail? HGAPS?
My HGAPS one, my HGAPS Gmail is, sorry, it was just pulled up. It is kbsutton@hgaps.org.
KB Sutton 8.
Nope, just KB Sutton.
All right, and then Wilson.
It is wilsonjacobs@hgaps.org.
All right, you guys tell me if that works. And John, Seifa, I have to make your guys' accounts to add them. 24 minutes. Okay,
It worked.
nice.
Yeah, same.
So you guys could, what for the ARFs, our goals for tonight are, let's have two. Let's have them linked to the wiki pages. And let's get names on the columns so that we know who are we trying to organize, who are we tracking the contributions for. The filling out the rows, you guys could start, but let's not try to fill out all the rows tonight. This is still we're still getting things into focus and organized. The working on the manual, and the other two things that we're going to try to do tonight are go over your guys' notebooks and look at the results of the factor analyses and discuss some implications, but also start doing some writing. So I'm going to have us, and with both of them, we're not going to make a huge amount of headway. We're not going to do a lot of writing, but I want to have us actually like pilot how exactly is this going to work and get that debugged so that you guys will be able to make serious tracks in the coming week. Sound good? So in the HCL manual in the cloud is an outline that I made as a Google Doc with a table of contents in it. It's got a whole bunch of sections in it, most of which will make sense, like be useful for the HCL, but some which may not. And some, as you guys go deep on the HCL, you may be like, why didn't you add this? What I was borrowing, what I was emulating was manuals for two other measures, and I mashed them up to create a super manual, a super outline. The GBI team, and Nick and Kelsey in particular, of the people that I can see on the call, I'm like, you guys have already lived with an outline that I made and a messy page that I built that didn't have an outline. So it was a hot mess, and you guys did the hard work of wrestling the two together. And so you guys have the most experience and thoughts about, like, does that outline thing even work the way that he expected? And Kelsey had a bunch of feedback from that process. Where'd you put the feedback?
We created our own outline, which I shared with the water carriers earlier this afternoon.
Nice. So, so I'd be curious to go over this together, like maybe you and me, or whoever else has an opinion about it, to come up with a version 3.0 of the outline as we try to use this going forward and have other people use them as well. The fantasy was that we would add stuff here and then clean it up and then move it over to Wikiversity. The way that it's actually happened with the GBI is a little bit fuzzier and messier than that, but the vision was make a Google Doc. It's easy to share. It's easy for people to add stuff to. It works, even though we're all at different places and universities and countries and whatnot. Start with that, and then once the content is right, then work on moving it over to Wikiversity. The parts of it will be able to just copy and paste. Parts of it are going to take more hassle. One of the other things that we're thinking about as a group is, does everybody want to do everything, maximize the learning, or do we want to specialize and divide and conquer? And Avi and Lillian and some people are like, learning advanced graduate level statistics over the summer, I'm not positive I'm gonna, and I don't want to slow other people down, but I do want exposure. I do want to learn some, and I love that sort of hybrid. But we could decide we're going to divide things up and be like, okay, we're all going to work on the Google Doc together. But then Lillian and Dwani have really gotten good fast with basic and intermediate edits on Wiki. So as stuff is ready to move over, people like that would be like, I'm not going to be your R ninja, but I could move stuff over and do the formatting and add the citations and the other things, and that's going to help us move stuff along. If you guys decide to specialize, where is that going to get tracked?
In the ARF.
Exactly. So I don't know that we need to do it every week, but we should probably several times over the next couple weeks, like just look at the ARF. Does that still look like kind of like what we're doing? And update it that way. Questions about this? I'm stoked how the pieces are starting to come together. We've still got a ton of links to add and a bunch of privileges to and accounts. So this is still some assembly required, but we're making a lot of headway. Implications for tonight and our pilot. This is the current version of the article about the general behavior inventory on Wikipedia. This one is about to get a major overhaul. So the GBI team's version is in Kelsey's sandbox, and we're getting ready to move it over. But you guys all have our notebooks, and you've started to make tables in those notebooks, and some of you have figures already in those notebooks. When we get them looking really pretty, and we're like, this is what we think is the final cut for describing the factor structure of the HCl, which we're not completely sure about yet. But hypothetically, we're like, okay, this is the one that we want to let people know about. This is the version that we think people should be using. let's make a beautiful figure that shows these are the items that go on this one. These are the items that go on that one. And you guys will do that in R. And then you'll compare each other's and you'll be like, oh, Chase's is beautiful. And then we'll look at Seifa's and be like, dang, that's got some really cool stuff in it too. And so we'll iterate rapidly, come up with an upgraded version. When we have the figure, we're going to put it on Wiki. And we're going to use it in the other paper as well. The order matters. How can we do that? Isn't that plagiarism? Nope. When we put it on Wiki, we put it up with a Creative Commons license. And then when we cite it in the paper, when we use the same thing in the paper, we cite Wiki and say this version of the figure is adapted from or copied from a version that was previously published with a Creative Commons license. So you guys are closer than you thought to actually having content that could go up onto the wiki. And at the same time, also making headway on the other paper. So that's pretty darn neat. A couple of you guys got the IRT, the item response theory code to run. So you already have these figures in your notebook, or a version of these figures in your notebook. These are the curves for the GBI short forms that are published in 2 papers that were published last year in 2020 in a paywall journal. Exactly the same plan. So how did I make these in R? What did I do with them? Put them up on Wiki with a Creative Commons license, and then cite the Wiki in the version that I sent to the paywall journal. So you guys already have a version of these. Now my RFU is not good enough to make things this pretty straight in R. So what I did was I used R to make the map, and then I rebuilt this in PowerPoint, and I rebuilt these in Excel. And the paper that I'm submitting tomorrow, what I am doing right now is taking the figures that I made with the code. Oh God, that looks ugly, blown up big. They're gonna make me do it again. If it gets accepted at the journal, they're gonna be like, these are of inadequate quality, but I'll make them again then. But I'm like trying to figure out how to make the figures, make them acceptable. And so I'm copying stuff out of R, pasting it in PowerPoint.
I have a couple of Amazon packages. But they're in the mailroom. Can you go get them?
Yeah.
All right.
In the office.
Questions about any of this?
Eric, you mentioned that the scoring was off in the scared. Does
Yep.
that affect the output that I sent and that our group has worked on in the past week?
It does not.
Okay.
That's a fantastic question. So as we're checking all the processes and things like that, we have 4 measures that are in play right now. The scared, we found a mistake in the report that gets generated for the person that's taking it to find out, are they anxious or not? It was missing an item on the social anxiety scale. That's fixed now. The but Qualtrics has two different processes. One for what do you want to show during the survey, which was what was broken on the scared for the one scale. And what do you want me to do with the data when I export it to analyze an R or SPSS? So the scared data was fine in the spreadsheet, but busted on the one scale for the report. The PHQ-9 is the opposite. The PHQ-9 added everything up right for the PDF, but it was really wildly busted for the spreadsheet that we downloaded, which is why the PHQ-9 team got a file. And then I'm like, this is kind of interesting. Can you figure out what's gone wrong here? And you guys were good. You guys looked at it and you're like, one of these doesn't look like the others. I bet there's something wrong with this item. I'm like, you right? And so the file that I'm sending to SAFA is code to fix that in SPSS. And what SAFA is going to do is convert that to R, so it's easier for all of you guys to use. The GBI data are a different data set, different process. I'm not worried about it because I've been over that 30 times. The HCL, I think, is fine both ways. So we're caught up on that. Lillian and Dwani helped catch the mistake and the output. And I showed in the other video, I was like, here's how we caught it. Here's how we documented it. Here's how we're linking it to other things. So we don't need to do that again. We can mark that part of the video, like, hey, here's the procedural stuff about tracking bugs. So so let's go through your guys' output. Let's take the next, let's do a timer and let's do 10 minutes each to go through a notebook from each of the projects to look at what do we have so far and what questions do you have. So like a quick presentation and then some discussion.
Great. What do we want to put it to? 5 minutes, 10 per group?
Let's see where we're at in 5 and then have 5 for discussion or next steps. Sure.
Okay.
It's our first time doing this. Let's try it out.
Yeah. Super.
Who's got output ready to go?
I do. I can go first.
Nice. Oh, okay. Awesome.
Let's see. So can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry about the color. I have a difficult time looking at the screen. So just fixed that for you. So I just ran through Eric's code and I printed out or just knit what was in there with the second version of the data. And you can see over here that the PHQ-2 looks much better than it did before. Well, for now. And then the variables for skewness and kurtosis look good as well. Going down, fixing the PHQ-2 variable increased the alpha by 0.05, which is a good thing, which is a great thing. So we have—
It's a big change.
Yep, big change. And over here you can see the correlations are much better as well. And then I ran, as Eric had asked, I ran a 2-factor analysis, this is the one factor, and this is the, as you can see for the one factor, all the loadings are well above 0.3, and the communalities look great as well. So we do know, according to principal components analysis with Promax rotation, that we only we have one factor. But when you run a two-factor model,
Oh,
you get
wow.
beautiful clean cut. Yep. And the cutoff point was 0.3. So all of these factor loadings that are missing were below 0.3. So that's interesting. I haven't had a chance to take a look at the questions yet, so I can figure out whether or not these actually make a different factor. What I know from the literature is that PHQ-9 is usually just one factor. So it's interesting to see this sort of dynamic. Again, with Promax rotation, and then, yep. So that was something interesting, but as you can see over here, the correlation between the two factors is negative and incredibly high. So of course, you know, since it's supposed to be one factor, this is to be expected. But the interesting portion was the negative correlation. Not sure what's going on over there. I'd have to take a closer look at it, but we'll see. This is a factor loading sort of distribution. Let's see,
The sign on the rotation can be flipped the opposite. And what's happening is the so geometrically 90-degree angle is transforms into a correlation of 0. So 90 degrees, they're uncorrelated. And what Promax is doing is forcing the two to not be correlated. So draw two lines through the items as best you can that have to be 90 degrees perpendicular to each other. And then what Promax is doing, so the keep them 90 degrees apart, that's Varimax rotation, and that's the default in most statistical programs. And that's a dumb choice in a lot of people's opinions, not just mine. Promax is like, okay, start that way and then see if letting them wiggle, letting them change the angle, lets us draw lines through clouds of items better. And so it is fitting better. They're very highly correlated. So instead of being 90 degrees apart, if they were superimposed, that would be a correlation of 1. So what we're seeing is something, if we visualized it, then the axes are getting allowed to tilt, not collinear, not the same line, but not 90 degrees apart. What happens with the negative sign is sometimes it flips and rotates the opposite way. And that's kind of, my understanding is that it's kind of like, this is at SAFE's level. It's kind of like with minimization, and you may, sometimes the data, it's like it tilts one way, sometimes it tilts the other. So I don't think that that's a big deal. And if we scored the weights or pulled out factor scores, I bet they would be positively correlated.
Yep. I agree. That was actually going to be my next step. So perfect.
Sweet.
And then this is our beautiful screen plot. It definitely looks like we might have two factors with the way the elbow is. 1, 2, or 1. So that's what I have so far. I did run the IRT stuff. I don't have that printed here, but I can go over that if you'd like as well.
I don't think we need to do that tonight. That's awesome. That's awesome having it. Other people have questions? I got a ton of thoughts. We're about 5 minutes. This is awesome. All right. I have not carefully read the anchor publication for the PHQ-9. And I don't know the first author on the PHQ-9, and I have not read the entire author list to figure out who ran the stats for it. So I don't know. I don't know who did it. I don't know how good they are. But last week we talked about the HCL, and I said Jules Angst is one of my heroes. I want to be him. I want to be like him when I grow up. Guy is amazing. He has many skills, many talents, many experiences. Statistician is not one of them. And the way that they did the factor analysis in the original paper, I'm like, that wasn't actually very good. No disrespect, no shade to Jules. I love Jules. The but just the if in a perfect world they would have done it differently at the beginning, but everything that has come since then is other people like, well, this is the way Jules did it, and he's a world-class rock star expert, so they didn't question the statistics. So SAFA said everybody is usually finding a single factor for the PHQ-9, and I'm calling the question, is that what they're finding or is that what they're assuming? I don't know. But the people who are readers and fast readers, there's a ton of literature on the PHQ-9, but I'd be like, let's look at our Zotero and be like, who did the stats on the first paper? Did they do it similar to what we're learning now? Did they look at a scree plot? Did they do parallel analysis? I bet not. So what SAFA is finding may actually be true in other people's data. They just didn't check.
Doing a quick Google Scholar search, somebody did a CFA and measurement and variance analysis, and they also found one factor, but you're right. The assumption is one factor, and it's a confirmatory factor analysis. So
Right. And I think in the Too Good to Be True paper, I'm in print saying, I think that we go too quickly to confirmatory models. If people didn't do a good job with the original exploratory analysis, if they didn't look at the plots that SAFA closed with, we may actually have started with a bad model, and then everybody just keeps copying and it's turtles all the way down. So this is exciting, because there's like 1,000 papers out there using the PHQ-9, and we may be like, you know what, they're all wrong.
yep.
But we obviously really want to be sure before we say that in print, or we're going to look like smacked patooties. But so that's, and then like a month ago at one of these, we were like, so how many things might the PHQ-9 measure? One possibility is 1, depression. But if it's more than 1, are there other models? Anybody remember that, talking about the Beck depression inventory? And when Beck wrote it, he's like, I think this is measuring 2 things. And what did he think they were? He's the inventor of cognitive behavioral therapy. He's like the cognitive stuff and the behavioral stuff. What he actually said was the cognitions and the emotions, the affective stuff, and then the physical, behavioral, somatic stuff. So people have argued, if we get more than 1 factor, is it body and mind? Is it behavior and cognition? But that would be 1 split, and that's pretty cool. So I expected, and you guys already heard me, so hey, I made a prediction and I was wrong, and we have it recorded so you guys can, because I said last week when you guys do this, what I bet we're going to find is either 1 or 1 plus Pluto, like the third factor with the third contender for factor on the HCl. But what Seifa just showed us is they're really highly correlated. So it could be easy to mistake them as being 1 factor, but actually we've got 2. Like, that'd be cool if it was cognitive and behavioral. Those of you that had Psych 500 with me, the other possibility is that it's negative affect and low positive affect, anhedonia and loss of interest. And there are imaging papers coming out saying that those have distinct neural correlates. So I'm super curious what those are and whether that holds up. So fantastic.
May I share one other thing? I just quickly found this.
Sure.
It's competing models, so I'm going to share my screen again. So unfortunately, we weren't the first ones. Others have also tested this. And as you can see here, it's kind of like exactly what you're talking about. Some are like non-somatic, whereas others are somatic. Looking at the 1 factor goodness of fit statistics versus the 2 factor models, it looks like they picked the 2 factor model to be the best, and their factor loadings are very similar to ours. So I just wanted to share that.
That's huge. Yeah. So whose paper is this?
Let's see.
Elhai? Psych research. Oh, that's hilarious.
Yep.
So Joe Calabrese and I have published together a ton. He's listed as the senior author on it. He just retired. That's a great find, Seifa. So, all right, for the HCl people, the somatic, not somatic distinction also is worth keeping in mind. We don't think that that's what we got with the first 2 big factors, but keep an eye out for it. The HCl has been translated into a ton of different languages, and Jules Angst has looked at the data across countries, and he said at bipolar conference, the items behave differently across cultures, and the cognitive stuff that we see in US data and European data, we don't see behaving the same way in Asia. And he's like, and as I'm looking at other countries, more of the world's looking like Asia than the US. And so there's that body mind thing. There's a literature saying, and this is relevant when we go to looking at regions of the world or translations. So Angst said the people talk about in Asia, they somaticize their anxiety or depression. They focus on the symptoms in their body rather than I'm thinking differently, I feel down. And he's like, actually, I think that's upside down. I think that it's Europe and America that are the exception, and everybody else is focusing on a much more holistic. And I'm like, damn, that's like one of those Gestalt figure ground things. I'm like, you just totally, now I can't not see the vase instead of the 2 faces. So that's super duper cool. With all this riffing on the HCl, let's look at that next. But boom, fist bump, Seifa.
I have my output for the HCl if no one else on the team does.
Bring it. Share away.
Cool. Our studio.
Oh, there are already footprints on the moon.
Let me get this to go down. Okay, so I guess just we'll start. From last time we did talk about how we thought there'd be a third factor, a Pluto, really, but we weren't 100% sure. So I ran an exploratory factor analysis with a cutoff 0.3, and I used a Varimax rotation. It was Promax before, so I wanted to see what a Varimax rotation would throw. And it looks like, just based on this graph, we are seeing 3 clusters, whereas before this middle was a little bit more spread out. But now I'm starting to see these different clusters, so I'm thinking like maybe there is something there. And so when we go down here, I did type in a 3 because I just wanted to see. And when I looked at the factor loadings here, this is split up. Here, let me pull up my downloaded version because that one has everything on one screen.
And Seifa, you made some tweaks in your notebook. The formatting is beautiful. And on my list of things to learn or relearn, because I learned it and then forgot, is like how do you make the heading boldface and all that markup? Yeah, this is much easier to read, Rachel. Thank you.
Yeah, so I was just doing a quick pass through. So factor 1 has the most loadings on it. So, and based on the items, I think this was Sunny is what they called it. And then factor 2 had the second most. And factor 3, I'm assuming, was Pluto because that one had the weird loadings of 31 and 32 that we saw last time that didn't really hang with the other 2 factors. But then I'm also seeing that like 10 loads fairly strongly here. I'm sorry, 9.
And 16 and 17.
Yeah, so we have more than just 2, which is what we did with the Promax rotation.
And how highly correlated are the factors?
I have that one as well. Pretty highly correlated. Factor 1 and factor 2 have the lowest correlation.
So we're still seeing the other thing. Want to give us a number?
Oh, am I not sharing? Okay. So factor 1 and factor 2 have a 0.3. Factor 1 and factor 3 have a negative 0.5. And factor 3 and factor 2 have a negative 0.6.
So it sounds like factor 3 did the weird, as it was adjusting, letting them correlate, it went the opposite direction. So we could flip the sign on both of those correlations. And in a 2-factor solution, the substance use items at the end went on dark. So that's consistent with what you just said, that the correlations between factor 2 and 3 are stronger.
Yeah.
So, and this pattern is worth knowing what to look for. So when the items are highly correlated, it is trying to decide, do they all belong on the same factor or are there lumps, like we were talking about with G6, that are even more correlated with each other? And are the lumps better off being separate but highly correlated factors versus put them all together on the same one? So as you start to understand this, it's kind of like one of those shuffling the coconuts thing. Where are we putting the overlap? Are they on the same factor? Well, that doesn't fit perfectly. Are they separate factors but independent? No, that's a really bad fit. Are they separate factors but really highly correlated? That may be fitting a little bit better.
Yeah, I see. I guess there's not really a way to know unless we test it or do some more, like actually use this and then find out what else that third factor would correlate with in terms of other measures out there.
Yep.
So,
Right. And there, that was beautiful. You just hit on sort of like, well, so in the old days when exploratory was all that we had, people would be like, I don't know, this looks like what I got with these data. And then, and there wasn't a really strong way of comparing them. With confirmatory factor analysis, we could play a game of survivor and be like, this model versus that model, mano a mano, which one's getting voted off of the island? And confirmatory analysis is really good for that particular purpose. My problem with confirmatory analysis is if you didn't even put the right model into the contest in the first place, right? You've got 6 models that you're going to compare. None of them are the right one now. Without doing a good job on the exploratory, you're not even going to put the right one into the confirmatory contest. But next week we'll get into the how would you actually compare the models in a confirmatory framework. But the other way, second part of what Rachel just said that I want to underscore is, do they have different implications? Do they function differently? And one of the things that's unusual about me is I'm not a statistician, I'm a clinical psychologist. And so my bottom line is, would this actually change what I would say to a client? Would this actually change the type of treatment that we would offer? And so the way that we would test that is also what Rachel said. Does it correlate differently with things? Does it rock differently? Does it predict an important change in treatment? Chase and some people in 525, we talked about mediators. Does it have a different process, or does it change the efficacy of all of those things? Are sort of, when the rubber hits the road, does this matter or not? So that's awesome. Scared, or sorry, thoughts about the HCL before we flip to the scared.
are we not going over the IRT stuff, merch?
Not this week.
Oh, that's my bad. Okay.
Bravo, Rachel.
Thanks.
Thank you. That was cool. And like John said 2 weeks ago, we're going fast in many respects, but there's also repetition. So we're deepening the memory traces. But the other part, which is really cool, what we're doing right now is seeing same analyses with different data sets, what patterns are the same, what patterns are different. So this is really, really cool learning.
Cool.
Who's scared stuff are we looking at?
If no one else on the scared team wants to take it away, I would relish the opportunity. So I
like how you mustered your courage and are going to show it with relish.
Yeah.
And the GBI people can figure out who, you can use the chat, figure out who's going to present next so that we can have a quick transition, don't need to play catch up.
Speaking
just
of
Totally
relevant-
riffing on condiment
yeah,
puns.
yep. So for me, I got as far as for the shared or for the scared. Let me just share screen right now. As far as running the initial alpha output to get the raw, standard, and then the G6, I just really quickly and furiously ran the principal component analysis on my R, which I'm happy to share after. But let me find the output for the 4 subsets here. I believe it's starting with, oh, this is the initial one for the total score. Where is the?
Did you tell it to pull out 3 or did it pick to pull out 3?
3 what?
3 components?
I did not tell it to pull out 3 components.
I think in the code it was set to 3 and default for all the
Oh,
measures.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes more sense to me because the default, we haven't talked about all of the different decision rules, but the default in SPSS and SAS also is a really stupid choice. They use is it at least bigger than 1 and that rule usually keeps way too many things. So it would have surprised me to only see 3 with a dumb default that usually keeps too many. Here, the people that wrote it would be rooting for, come on, 4. We have 4 subscales. Boy, wouldn't that be awesome if the data looked like there were 4 things in it. But I was wrong last week about my Pluto prediction for the PHQ, but I'm feeling good about my second prediction of it ain't going to be 4.
Yeah, and my apologies for not getting the complete output. I was under the impression that it was not just a slow play, but a very slow play. We were just doing the alpha and the rest of the summary statistics we got from that. But from that output that I have, everything seemed pretty highly, accurate information, all in the 0.9s, except for separation anxiety. That one had the lowest alpha and standard in G6. But here's the one for general anxiety disorder. I can keep scrolling. And he did. He did indeed. And then there's separation anxiety, which is just slightly lower than the rest.
So what I wish Ravel had in the output was in where it says raw alpha and all that. I wish it told us how many items.
Okay, yeah, I have the for those.
But that's not our fault. That's Bill Ravel not including it. And he would say, well, you can just count the items. And I'm like, that's kind of a pain in the butt with the GBI. And like, are all 73 here or 46 or 28? But what I want us to pull out of from what Wilson just showed us. So he ran the alpha on the total and on 4 subscales as written by the authors. So for Dwani and Lillian, we worked through pull down a PDF, and on the side of the PDF, it says what scale each of the items go on. So this is a decoder ring. And the way that Burmaher intended this to be used was if you're old, like him and me, you could print this out on paper and say, here, Dwani, pretend to be Leah and fill this out. And she would take a pen and she would mark her responses. And then a human being could be like, okay, item 1 counts towards the total, but also towards PASO, which is panic and somatic. And so this is how you would do it by hand. And Wilson went ahead and mapped all of them in his code. Another thing that we talked about at the earlier meeting is when we have the code really tuned and cross-checked, we actually want to give our code away. So we could take Wilson's, here's how you would calculate the reliability for all the scales, and we could put that on OSF, link that to Wiki. what we want to do before we go so boldly is we want to cross-check it and make sure that it's right before we put it out. And Dwani and Lillian and I spent a big chunk of this week figuring out, how do we check better? What process do we want in place for the checking? He just showed us 5 alphas really quickly. Anybody remember which one was the highest alpha? The total or one of the subscales?
I'm assuming the total, even though I don't remember because there's more items.
You are correct. Hashtag science. Hashtag psychometric theory. Hashtag algebra. So the formula for alpha has how many items you got as part of the formula. So as we slow play Wilson's, we don't need to do it again, but as we went through, what we saw was, oh, this is weird. The alpha is changing a lot because it's the same items, it's the same people. That's bizarre. No, it ain't. Kelsey already dialed in. The subscales have fewer items. And so what would you guess had the lowest alpha? The shortest scale. Which one's the shortest? It's actually a tie. There are 2 that are really short and 2 that are medium sized. When we first talked about the alpha, we said Eric is not actually on team alpha. He's like, everybody reports it because we're lazy. It's convenient. But one of the problems with it is that it's contaminated by the number of items, and the R output gives you other stuff that doesn't include the number of items as part of the formula. So what would be a better thing to report if we're looking at short scales? Want to show us some output again?
Is it the G6?
G6 has some advantages compared to alpha, but it also I think has the number of items in the formula. The average correlation is the average correlation of all the items with each other. So that actually is pure. How highly correlated are these items with each other? That's like the most direct measure you could come up with. On average, all of these items correlate with each other at 0.36. That doesn't have the number of items in the formula. So as we compare across the subscales, the fairest comparison would be not comparing the alpha, not comparing the G6 probably. The best thing to compare would be the average correlation, the average R. There's some other ones like that also would be good as well. But and this I talked about before too. So that's a better measure. It's a better metric for us to be paying attention to. Why aren't we? Tradition. I'm like, that's dumb. Let's change.
It's also easier to reproduce. It's just like easier in general to create the alpha, to generate the alpha.
Well, more programs do it. The average correlation is an R special. I don't think SPSS can do that without writing a macro. So cool. Bring it on home, GBI.
I also have the PCA output, if that is good, but if not, let's just keep going.
Oh yeah, no, let's see it real fast.
Okay, real quick.
We can find out if another one of my fearless predictions, it goes down in flames. Just go, do you have the N factors output or just the PCA output?
Just the PCA output per subscale.
Never mind. I wanted to see the scree plot and the parallel analysis.
Mm-hmm.
So my hypothesis will ride for another day.
Yeah.
Over to the GBI.
So Bolette has our pretty notebook and she is not here tonight. So that is unfortunate. But I can share Caroline's because she has sent it over. Yeah, it's not the one that I had done, but I think it'll work well. Because I'm still trying to figure out how to knit things, Eric. I understand the stats and I figured out how to use R, but I don't know really what a notebook is still. I'm still figuring out what code is. But I will share my screen anyways, and I will show you what we have at the moment
Nice.
from Caroline's notebook.
Yeah, that's a document because I thought we were like knitting to one PDF, like combining them. But yeah.
Hey, not driving Caroline.
Yeah, I know. I'm actually in a howl right now. I should probably have a mask on, but I'm the only one in the lab and I've been vaccinated. Also, I would open it with Google Docs or like do the open with.
Google Docs.
Yeah. Or I can just share my screen too.
Yeah, how about you do that? Because I think you might have the better document.
Wait, let me figure out how to do this. Sorry. We were supposed to be so smooth. We're letting you down, Eric. Okay. We're getting there. Okay.
No, it's fine. I'm taking a 5-second mini.
Thank you,
mindfulness.
Wilson. Yes, I can knit in real life, just not on our.
I can't knit in real life.
My mom's taught me twice and I've forgotten that too.
I just love seeing the humor in things, anyway.
Okay, and I'm hoping this is what we need. So we did the reliability and like alpha stuff last week, right? So I
Yep.
should scroll down.
Yep.
And then we're doing item specific, frequency. And then this is where we're getting the factor stuff, right? So
Yep. And this forced 3. The the blue 3 is like we're telling R what to do.
Yeah, I didn't know. That was my I asked Kelsey some questions in the private chat last week. I was like, I don't know what to do with GBI because I'm like, I know we know it's not gonna come out pretty because there's no pretty factors.
Yep.
So I wasn't sure about like what to do.
Yep.
And factor 3 was just in the code, and so we didn't shift it because we
That's
didn't know
fine.
what it should be.
That's fine. Come on down to the scree plot. That's interesting with the color coding.
Yeah, okay, that's the factor loading.
More down, more down,
More down.
more down.
Uh-oh, I don't know if we have it then. Oh wait.
There it is.
Okay, perfect.
Ta-da! All right, and up just a little bit again. All right, so we're looking at self-report. And now back down to the other thing. And after after last week's meeting, I'm like, I have slides where I taught a class about all these different things, and I found the slides, I made edits, but then I didn't send them to you guys, so I'll do that this week. But as you're looking at this, especially the GPI's got so many things plotted over each other here. What we're looking for is how many things are above that green line of triangles.
I don't think anything, right? Wait, above
Well,
it? Oh wait,
above it.
see. Yeah, 2.
Kind of 2.
Yeah. So this is looking like 2. Now that is intriguing to me because I already was like, we're not going to get 2. If we did, it would be cool if they were depressed and hypomanic, biphasic. And the biphasic is kind of what dark is doing on the HCL. The questions on the GBI that ask about, does your mood change rapidly? Do you have mood swings? Anything that's asking about swings, is that an up or a down item? It's both. It's swinging. And so the swinging items on the GBI are the ones that will cross load and behave weirdly because they're like, I am up and down by definition. So 2, intriguing, it would be maybe Depue's scoring was right. Now, did you do it again with the parent items too?
I have it the parent item ones that I can share my screen really fast, Eric.
Yep.
So I should rerun it and see what it does with two factors, even though like we know it isn't nice. Like just try it
Yeah,
out.
I would do it. I would do it with 2 as well.
Okay.
And so this is parent, Kelsey.
This is the parent one, yeah.
So we've got 2 strong ones again.
And then there's like kind of a little baby third, maybe.
Yeah. And somebody sent stuff around last week. I thought it looked like 5 in what somebody sent around.
That might have been a short form. No, that couldn't be right. Yeah.
I will look at the
That
lens real
sounded
fast
wrong.
to check. I'll look at her code, what she sent.
Yeah, actually, I think it was Billette's stuff that I was looking at. And I'm like, oh, that looks like. So those are pretty different numbers, 2 versus 5. If we decide that that is what it actually is looking like, that's a big deal. The number of things that the same measure is measuring depends on who's filling it out. And social psychology talks about the participant observer distinction, or the sort of, we think if we're filling it out about ourselves, we're like, this is what my personality is like. And somebody else rating their roommate's personality or their partner's personality is like, but actually, so we've got a difference of opinion, and that definitely could be an explanation for getting different structures.
Eric, I found her. She did both. So the top one is the parent report one, which looks like my graph. And then the bottom one is Caroline's, which looks like, well, the one that Caroline did, which is the self-report.
Okay, so this is why it's good having everything written down, because I am misremembering. Oh, it was 5.
But they do look different in terms of, there's like the little questionable one.
Yeah. So,
That makes me feel better that Villette also got you. I was a little worried. I was like, how do we
No.
get two doctors?
and in the thing this afternoon too, I'm like, we're all, the thing which is weird about science when you're really doing it is like seeing how often mistakes are made. And and I'm like, and I screw up all the time. I'm only human. B, nobody's perfect. C, I'm terrible at typing. D, I'm chronically busy and trying to walk the fine line between efficient and sloppy. Doesn't seem like that should be a fine line, but trust me, it is. So like, I find mistakes in my stuff all the time, and when we found other mistakes, I'm not angry. I'm like, thank God we caught it. Let's document it, fix it, and and we want to be methodical and have everything locked down tight before we start talking trash, like the entire world has been using the HCL wrong, or the entire but if that is what we find and we really trust it, that is what I'm gonna be like, yeah, let's alert the media. So, okay.
Quick question,
Mhm.
real quick. I may have screwed up. I did run the code for the entirety of the code that you sent us for the total score. I just thought that our objective was to run it for all the subsetted ones as well. So I have output for the total score, if you want to look at that. But if I was mistaken and we're actually just supposed to look at the subsetted stuff, then I'll need to go back to the drawing board and run all that.
No, that's fine. Let's, in the interest of time, I want to flip to the next thing.
Yeah.
But the sort of, the charge for last week was actually what you did. So add subscales, and Chase, I think, did it both ways. She was like, this is what the one said, and then we had discussion about, do we want to make tweaks to sunny and dark? The other, Caroline, being like, hey, I guess I could go back and run it with 2. I could. Josh's masters was using a large data set that's never been published, the P-Birds data set. And his masters was trying to figure out how many scales should we have on this measure. So it was like 375 or 400 items. And the people that wrote the items said, we think we're measuring this many things. I was one of the authors. I, in the privacy of my own home, to my wife and my dog, I'm like, I don't believe it. I'm one of the authors, but I'm part of a team. It's not a dictatorship. So we wrote separate sets of items. I'm like, I call baloney. It's not going to work that way. So we had a plan. We wrote a bunch of items. We thought we knew how many scales we had, but secretly, I'm like, I don't think that that's what we're going to get. And Josh's masters was, okay, we've got the data now with more than 1,000 people. How many things did we measure? So he did exploratory models, exactly what you guys have done. And because it was the very first time anybody in the world had looked at those items, nobody knew. This is a recurring theme of, when we're doing science, there is no key. There is no key. That's crazy. But that's, if you're doing something new, if you're discovering something, if you're doing something new, the first person, the pioneer, is like, I don't know, God, I hope I did it right. So Josh ran a 1 factor, a 2 factor, a 3 factor, a 4 factor, a 5 factor, a 6 factor, a 7 factor, an 8, a 9, a 10. And by like 8, 9, 10, it was clearly overkill. It was clearly breaking. And Josh and I had a series of meetings where we looked at the 1, we're like, no, it's clearly more than that. But then we had a couple meetings where we went really deep on, is it 3 to 7 is where we obsessed. And then Josh went and ran it like Caroline and Billette and Kelsey did. That measure also had parent report and youth report. It's not the same structure. So we have seen this before too. So the run a bunch and then obsess over it is part of the process. The sharing screen 2. What I'm getting ready to send to you guys, I showed you before the PowerPoint where I'm trying to wrestle many R plots into a prettier looking pattern. This is the Microsoft Word document with the same plots, and I'm like, oh, that looks all raggedy. I can't send that in for the reviewers to look at. So I'm remaking this one, but I've got the complete paper for, this is going in tomorrow. So I'm going to send this around. I'm actually back and forth about whether to send this one or the 2021 that's already published with the GBI short forms, or both. But this is the paper that the R code for the factor analyses and the IRT, all the code that I handed you guys was looking at a psychosis scale and psychosis items. And so you were typing over wherever it said psychosis, depression. Wherever it said PANS, you typed scared or HCL or PHQ-9. but this is the paper that that code was built for. The why I'm sending it to you is so that you could see what the finished product of the arc of this code would look like. And as we go through it, you'll be able to see, you're going to see hundreds of pages of output. And then this manuscript is 21 pages long. So you're going to see what made the cut, what actually got used in the paper. This is also going to be super duper helpful for you guys move in the data papers along. So table 1, let me make this bigger for you guys. Page width. Table 1, you guys are going to be able to just type over the numbers from your output. So Wilson showed us the alpha for the full length scared. So you guys could do a save as. And how many items on the full length scared?
44.
Correct. So delete the 30, type 44, and then in the output that he showed us, here is the bootstrapped alpha, and then you have to find it in another part of the output, but here's the confidence interval and the observed mean inner item correlation right next to it, right? We had alpha, standardized alpha, G6, bing, that's where this number is. And then the lambda 6. It's L6 here, but G6 in the output because it was Gutman's 6 lambda. So that little bit, but so you guys already can start filling out the table. And then for the scared, the decision is, and then do we make 4 more columns for the 4 subscales as other people are using it? Or do we make additional columns with our factors or what we suggest as an alternate scoring of the scared? So that's going to be a team scared game day decision. The version that I'm sending to you guys will have a supplemental table at the end. This supplemental table, I am going to send to the journal, but as a supplemental table, so it's not going to get published in the main article if it gets accepted. The font changed. That's weird how it's cropped. I don't know why it's doing that. It's not in the actual document. Does the formatting look familiar? It looks like one of Eric's Google forms. It looks like one of Eric's Google Sheets, actually. It is a Google Sheet. And the columns are this one is like which items went on which scale. So the GBI team already has Nick and Kelsey and Logan have gone over that table very, very carefully. Which items are on the 10M, which are on the 10DA. That's what this is doing. And this is comparing the full length that everybody's been using to somebody else's 19 item version, to somebody else's 6 item version, to another person's 6 item version. And then in this paper, we're like, we could chop it down to 20, and that works much better than the 30 item and is a 30% savings, 33% savings, fewer items and more accurate. But we decided to go really bold, and we're like, but actually, if we're in that mode, you could do a really surprisingly good job with just 10 items throw out 2/3 of the items. These are the really good ones, and you still could measure 5 different things with it. So the 30 items gave us 5 factors. So this, I'm slow playing this a little bit to be like, as you guys are working, we use Google Docs and Google Sheets a lot. And what I'm doing with my collaborators is I'll pull a bunch of R output. I'll run all the stuff in R, and then I'll type up a table in a Google Sheet and share that with you guys. This author list is people at Hopkins, people at VCU, people at Duke. We're all at different institutions. So I'm using the Google Sheet to share the output. And this is my working table. I'm pulling it out of R and then comparing. And part of what, and we wound up, I am ready to do the smackdown comparing our short forms to everybody else's short forms. And this table and the R code has every published short form that we could find on the PANs. For the PHQ people, the shortest short form, the PHQ-9 is already the shortest of the measures that we're talking about, but people are trying to make it shorter. There are people, and you have articles about a 2-item short form of the PHQ-9. And then I think that there's a 5 in the HCL32. I said earlier, the shortest that I'm aware of, I think, is an 11-item short form of that. But those are out there too, and it's easy for you guys to add the code. It's just playing variations on the theme. And the Google Sheet is a way of organizing it, lining them up side by side, being able to compare. So when I send this around, table 1, you guys could start filling out immediately, and you could start playing with it, and you could decide to go straight to a manuscript thing, and you've got nicely formatted tables for that, or you could do the Google Sheet and be like, let's compare several different ones. Based on the discussion that we've had tonight, you can make a case for either one. Table 2, no help for most of the projects that you guys have, because we don't have anything to correlate the scales with and the data sets that you guys have. So table 2, delete. Except for the GBI team, you guys, this is the fancy figure that I redrew in PowerPoint, and that file's coming to you guys as well. And this, do I have the, no, I don't have it open. And this is the item response theory stuff. So I want to make good on the promise of spending a couple minutes piloting the writing process. So everybody ready to? Oh, I didn't quite get this where I wanted before 6 o'clock. Okay, so I'm going to send this around. The easiest place to start a data paper is in the middle. The first thing that I always write is the methods section. That's the first section that I complete. So the way that I attack a paper is, what's my question? Write down a research question or a set of hypotheses or aims. So, so I need that in focus, not the whole introduction, just what are we trying to do with this paper? Oh yeah, okay, right, good, I'm oriented. And then the first section that I write after that is the methods section. And in the methods section, we've got a measures section. You guys all have a measure. So you could do a save as and be like, method, I don't need to change that. Sweet, one word done. Measures, I don't need to change that either. Sweet, 2 words done on our paper. And then PANS, wrong. So type general behavior inventory or scared, or change the publication. You guys already know how many items are on it. You know, do they go 0 to 2 or 1 to 4, or how so you guys could already write a bunch of this. So let's do it. I'm going to email this. I'm going to drop this in the chat right now. Leaders, turn it into a Google Doc. We actually only need to do that once, and then share that in the chat. And then let's go to the breakout rooms and have everybody be like, where are we putting this? How are we? But everybody can then type over the measures section, put in your thing's name, see if you can figure out how to get a reference added. So let's see how far we can get in, I don't know, 5 minutes. We're trying to get out at 8. So 5 minutes from when I get this uploaded to the, I could just share the file with you guys directly in the chat, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but sometimes it's like weird. It doesn't let you do it from your desk, like your computer. It lets you do it from like Drive or OneDrive or Dropbox, which is annoying. I'd like to add.
Well, this is in Dropbox. All right, in the interest of speed, oh crap. I'm just gonna email it after all.
Should we head to the breakout rooms, Eric?
If yes, because it's coming over email. Smart. Go. Let's see.
There's Wilson.
Great. So it's recording us right now. I think it's continuing. So it's not
You
recording.
can pause it.
Yeah.
Excellent catch. Welcome back. How far did you guys get?
We shared a folder and touch base. Wonderful conversations.
Had a chat about process.
We talked about emails and delegating duties.
Nice. All right. So that was not enough time. But what we were trying to do tonight was just get it started. The what you guys just established is our upgrade for how are we going to keep stuff moving between now and next Thursday night. The shared file that you guys made for the so I emailed a copy of the paper that is confidential. It is about to be under review. So you guys converted that to a Google Doc, and that's what you guys shared with each other?
I shared the GBI folder with my team so we can create shared documents within it.
Got it. What we want to do with that thing that got mailed around is make it into a Google document and have at least one copy of that pinned to the discuss page for the copy of the measure related. So even though it's not going to be the manual, right? This is the template for the data paper. So it's going to have a second ARF for it, but we still want to clip it to the Wikiversity page for the manual. Why? So we've got one place for the team to find everything that they need, but also I've already told you, we're going to use some of the same stuff in both places. And when I say that to professors, they're like, that's plagiarism. I'm like, not if we cite it, not if we do it with a Creative Commons license. Well, then you can't publish it in the other journal. I already have many times. So that'll be cool to be able to so that's all totally awesome. For next week, you guys don't have the CFA code. I have a note. Shit. On the list on Eric's to-do list, add. I'm not sharing screens either because I want to see your guys' faces. On Eric's to-do list, add send CFA code. I also have the folder with the exercises from the multivariate course that I taught many years ago. Wilson, Kelsey, and Colin and Chase, we talked about, hey, we want to learn more about regression. And I'm like, oh, I already have, I don't think, did I ever send you guys the regression files? Add that to my to-do list. The files exist. Here is the folder in Dropbox. For giggles, Grace and Chase and Wilson, the power analysis thing that we did in class was me upcycling the thing that I used way back teaching the multivariate course. Where I'm going with this, why I'm showing this now, is I have data and I have exercises and I have a key for factor analysis, both exploratory and confirmatory factor analysis. So these are the PowerPoints that I looked for after last week. And I'm like, hey, they exist, I found them. And then I made some changes and then I didn't send them to you guys, so I will. I have marked up output which is not in R. This output that we're looking at now is from a very expensive program that I'm not sure exists anymore called EQS. Seifa, do you know? Are they still selling it?
Yeah, I have it on my computer.
Nice. So really good program. And when I got a grant and when I got a startup package to move here, I bought myself a copy. So I've got really nice annotated output with the wrong program. and I don't want to teach you guys EQS, even though it still exists, even though it's a really good program, because it costs a lot of money. So I've got all of this, and I'm like, it's semi-helpful. If we did it all again in R, we could compare the two, and that would work fast. But for Chase and Grace, this is the type of stuff you guys heard me say many times. If we let me use the tools that I use to get tenure and get promoted, I've already got tons of examples. I've already got tons of stuff. But if we're trying to do it in R, I'm starting over again. And so this is exactly the type of thing that I was thinking about. What the way that this is marked up is EQS produces text output like R, and then I dropped in drawings rather than comment bubbles for the annotation. So this is easy for me to send around as a flat PDF. This SPSS output already is a PDF that I've marked up. So when you guys get the SPSS file, look at it and compare it to what you've already gotten with your PCA and EFA output. This is doing the same stuff that you guys have already done and looked at for the last 2 weeks in SPSS. The EQS output, the annotated CFA, here's what we're going to try next week. I'm going to send you the code. You're going to copy it, paste it into your notebook. You're going to run, and you're going to get output, which is, why is it doing that? And then I've got the slides as well that go through some of the similarities and differences. So we're going to have like our best ever set of teaching materials for next week. Other stuff that would be helpful? Can you hear my dog that we're still super thrilled to have back? We're like, yes, bark all you want. It was too quiet without him. All right. So this was a huge amount of progress. Do people feel like they have more clarity about what they could be working on in the coming week? So first thing that you guys can start writing is the method section and the measures. And you guys also already know your N, and you could start writing the participants and all of that cool stuff. And you've got output where you could actually start filling in some of the tables in the thing that you just got. So that's totally awesome. The water carriers and I are going to meet again between now and next week, and we'll keep adding to this, but this was a huge step forward. Other things to add to my to-do list.
Eric, you said that the Scared has updated database results with 400 new.
Yep, add it to my to-do list.
Okay.
But that actually, Grace, Chase, or Wilson, can you guys, let's have a race to see who could find the Google Sheet from class fastest that has the information about the measures, not the main one, but the one that had the code books and stuff like that. We didn't look at that one as much. Reason that this is relevant is because with Lillian and Duani, I had to go back to Qualtrics to do the debugging of the measure. And while I was there, I was like, do we have more people that have filled it out? We do. The scared added 400 more people. The PHQ-9 and the HCL, I don't know exactly how many, but they added another probably 500 to 1,000 people. So before we actually write the paper, might as well go ahead and update the data sets. I've pulled them all down, but I can't send them to you. Anybody remember why?
Is it the country information prevents it from being
Yes.
de-identified?
Yes. So so here's another thing that we could work on this week. What Chase, Wilson, and Grace are racing to find is the Google Sheet where we have the list of the countries. And then we have what region of the world is that country? What level of economic development is that country? So we've built a table to go ahead and collapse the countries several different ways. What continent are they? What economic development is cool? How does the World Health Organization group them? Julia Lukács pulled that all together for us. I started it and she finally finished it. So Chase, I'm not sure.
It's on the metadata one, and it's the tab that says countries.
Yep, beautiful.
Okay.
So yeah, this is it. Nice. And we've got, wow, look at all the people hopping on it. That's awesome. So Seifa, this is a inner join and tidyverse. So the Qualtrics number is the number in the data set that I'm deleting before I send it to you guys. The code is a 3-letter code, which we just threw in for giggles. That actually could be really helpful as we're plotting and we want to label which country is that, but we don't want to type all the letters for Afghanistan so that's why I included that when we're playing with ggplot. The main language, that was a huge amount of work for Julia to add, but grouping it by, so we got a ton of good stuff in here. What we need to do, what we don't want to do is type this in by hand 11,000 times or 16,000 times in the data set. So we want to use R to take one table and read it into the other table. Every time you see country number 9, replace that with Australia, add these other things. So, and Safe already nodded, got you. I understand exactly what to do. So it's a tidyverse package, like I showed you guys quickly in 525. The specific command is inner join, and the code is saying, take the country variable and match the number there with the row in this table to bring all of those other variables over. And when we get that code working, it'll do it for the whole data set all at once, which is beautiful. It's so cool when it works. And that code, we can use the same code for 3 of the 4 projects immediately. So that's going to be a huge win. I just haven't had time to, and I even know how to do it in R. I just haven't had a chance to. So as soon as we have that, then I'll be able to give you guys the upgraded data files. And I could delete the stuff, but that's actually more work for me. And it gives you guys less. So as soon as we have the inner join set up, I'm like, okay, upgraded data, more people and countries grouped by all these different things. So the country variable is still going to be gone, but all the other stuff is going to be added.
But
Pretty cool.
GBI, this isn't like, do we have this information for GBI or no?
Not for the data set that you guys are working with. That data set is a mashup of two very, very expensive data sets.
Okay.
But this is also solving the problem for everything in the HGAPS Assessment Center, because
Right.
they all use the same country codes.
Yeah, I was just thinking like a really interesting future direction or later project would be looking at like them not taking it in their native language, because I know there's a lot of research about like how not taking it in their native language. Like obviously the end goal would be to have it in their native language, but in the
Yep.
meantime.
Yep. And Dwani and Lillian and other people who have been involved with HGAPS longer, the whole arc where I would like to be in August is we're like, okay, we've got the GBI has a really good looking manual in the cloud. We've added all the subscale scores that we think would be clinically helpful. We've checked all the scoring and we're like, yeah, this is ready to hit the gas, and then make infographics about the GBI and what do the different scales mean and why would you use this compared to the others, and start sending those out over professional listservs. And then when World Depression Day comes, blow the dust off and advertise. So when we're done with the audit and all the upgraded quality control processes, I'm like, okay, now let's use what we've learned to really hit the gas. And the GBI and the assessment center has been used like 200 times so far, but but by Christmas, it should be a whole lot more than that. And in the big picture, by the time HGAPS starts back up in the fall, we'll be like, okay, gang, people who are using on Team Infographic, let's start advertising all the things in the assessment, and we'll be able to scale, and it'll be really, really cool. All right. We're 13 minutes over, which is pretty good for us. In my defensive thing is like, but we didn't start exactly at 6 because people were still getting the. So I'm like, so I honestly feel like we're only 7 minutes over. On that note, we can stop recording.